waking up from a dream. I can feel, but I can't see. I'm suffocating the spark of divine you made in me. But you were more than the grain of sand that made the bird to fingers on her tail. But when you think of beauty, I'll be there. Alone behind the eye of your electric stain. Reflections in your mirror, I become alone with you, the price of blue alone with you, the price of blue, so you can keep to yourself with the best of everything. And I can wander the rest, amazed and shivering. But
I'm Maddie, sitting down for another one of the Currents virtual sessions. Today, we are joined by Jenn Wasner of Flock of Dimes, and we just heard her song Price of Blue. Thank you so much for sitting down today, Jenn.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to jump into another song right now. This is Awake for the Sunrise.
I didn't wanna be awake for the sunrise, but my heart wouldn't let me rest. I didn't wanna see the light of the morning with an aching in my chest. So does fire carry fire as a warning, as a taste? I only wanted to know you better. I only thought that I knew you best. I didn't think I was a terrible liar, but I am when I need it most. Making a sorry attempt at compression with a hand halfway down my throat. So does life carry forward if the station is remote? Hope is still keeping my head above water till the moment before I choke. There is a future where we're resting easy on the other side of it. But I'd rather feel the full wrath of destruction than remember the things I've done. I gave up on that life as I gave myself to you, and I deserve it, the very worst of it. I deserve it, I know I do. And I deserve it, the very worst of it. I deserve it, I know I do.
That was just a Flock of Dimes with Awake for the Sunrise. We're sitting down with Jenn today for a virtual session. Jenn, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Happy to be home in my house, and yeah, just feeling really lucky to be alive and vaccinated and in the spring. It's great. Life's good.
Yeah, the spring, it feels like everything is kind of coming back to life. And I know that's been a good feeling for me.
Oh, it's been a game changer for me too. Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the cool things actually about this past year of being stationary for the first time in my life has actually been
Mm-hmm.
being able to experience the changing of the seasons
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I never have because I've just been jumping around from place to place so much. And so it's really nice to be able to really feel the spring arrive in a way.
Mm-hmm. A whole new kind of like appreciation for that stillness for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in addition to having your project Flock of Dimes, you're in the band Y Oak. And it had been a few years since you'd released music under Flock of Dimes. What made you feel like it was time to pick up that moniker again and start writing?
I think I've always been someone that really likes having multiple outlets because I write
Mm-hmm.
a lot, and I get really impatient about wanting to share as much music as I can, which sometimes, of course,
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel like I'm maybe taking up too much space. But I don't know. I love being able to share the things that I make with people. It makes me feel like I'm completing a certain
Mm-hmm.
cycle, and so the way that I make that possible for myself to the degree that I prefer is by having multiple aliases because that allows me to
Mm-hmm.
do more things and share more
Mm-hmm.
things more quickly. But Flock of Dimes is different because it's just me, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of that project has been about learning to take responsibility for the creative process in a new way, in a way that actually allows me to feel um, more excited about collaboration. It's sort of like
Mm-hmm.
the balancing of the scales, as it were. And so um, I've come to sort of feel as though this project, because it is mine and it's something that I use to learn about myself and I use to
Mm-hmm.
process my own experience. It's sort of like the center around which all of the other things kind of rotate.
Yeah, that's a really interesting outlook to hear that your solo project is like what has helped you learn the most about collaboration. That's really interesting. How do you feel like you approach songwriting differently when you're working under Flock of Dimes than you might under other monikers and aliases?
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure that I ever think about what project I'm writing for when I'm writing, because writing is such an
Mm-hmm.
intuitive thing that I think trying to kind of superimpose the external world onto it can be disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to not do that. Like usually I'm in sort of like a little bit of a fugue state or so, as it were. And so it's more about kind of following that intuitive thread and then later after the fact kind of trying to make sense of where it seems like a certain thing belongs.
Mm-hmm.
And even that is, a process that's largely based on intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people ask a lot, like, how do you know what song is going to be for what project? And it's just sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that I feel like I've ever been able to articulate, but I think
Mm-hmm.
part of being a creative person is learning to trust your own intuition and trust your gut. And so like, that's just something I tend to lean into as much as possible.
Absolutely. I know that you did a lot of the writing for this album, Head of Roses, at the kind of beginning stages of the pandemic. Do you feel like that sort of shaped your processing of those really uncertain months?
Sorry,
Bless
I was
you.
trying so hard to not sneeze, but
No, it's the spring.
nothing could be done. Yeah, nothing. It's pollen
Mm-hmm.
city here right now too. It's like the peak
Mm-hmm.
pollening
Here
in
too.
Durham.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think this record absolutely is like a document of a moment in time. I mean, they all are, but
Mm-hmm.
especially this one, I think, because it all happened
Mm-hmm.
so fast. I was really, um, I was left to process some exceptionally painful experiences without any of the distractions that I normally use and throw
Mm-hmm.
myself into um, to try and distract from those experiences. And so there was no escape from really like sitting with myself and my own experience
Mm-hmm.
and uncovering the layers of why this experience was as painful as it was, because it's with human beings, it's never really just about one thing. It goes deep,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I had never really taken the time to truly go as deep with that as I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so having this time and space where I live alone, so I'm in my house, I'm not touring, I'm not really seeing very many people, and I'm, processing this painful emotional experience. It's like I had a lot of time on my hands and I only had this one outlet. And so I kind of had to make this outlet work for me to the best of its ability. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like most of the songs from this record unfolded in like a one month, 6-week period, and so it is very much to me sort of like a snapshot of that moment.
Yeah, I think all those circumstances kind of combined make sense why this is such an intimate record, that you were like alone and just recording and using that as a reflective outlet. I think that is really present in the album.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. When you sat down after writing those songs as sort of like this vessel for figuring out your own emotions, and then you went to go record them, how was that experience, like sharing that with other people and collaborating?
Well, I mean, it was exceptionally joyful because at the time, everyone involved, and it was a small group because, obviously we were trying to keep things very, very safe. But it was a very, very small group of people, and it was a very, very attention and affection and humanity starved group of people. So there was a real joyousness to it. There was a real presence. Like people were there. People were really and truly present. Like there wasn't a lot of like hanging out on their phone. Like it was just sort of like everyone was very, very grateful to be sharing space, making music with other people. And obviously I include myself in that. It was a life-saving and life-giving experience to be able to get a few close friends together to work on this record with me.
Absolutely. I think that moments of getting to see people right now are that experience is so heightened, and it's really cool that you got to experience that alongside your music as well. I know you worked with Nick Sanborn of Sylvan Esso in the recording process for that. How was working with him?
Well, I mean, Nick's one of my closest friends here in North Carolina, and Betty's. Their studio is only just a few short minutes from my house. And so aside from music making, we saw a lot of each other. Nick and Amelia are kind of like my pod mates in early pandemic days. We would have outdoor backyard hangs to try and sort of like still see other people and have some semblance of a social life. And so they were very intimately familiar with the circumstances surrounding the writing of this record. And also just, they know me. And Nick knows me very well as a friend. And so I think that it was really important to me to find someone, and I'm still kind of in awe that I was able to sort of have someone in such close proximity to me, and not only is a dear friend and someone I feel very comfortable with on a personal level, but also has kind of the perfect skill set to bring these songs to life. I mean, Nick's got such an incredible brain for all of the parts of producing that I think are rarely present in just one person. He's got the sort of like incredible technical know-how and the math brain to sort of like understand how to make all the machines talk to each other. He's got that better than I do. And then, but he also has a real sense for this sort of like musicality and poetry of songs and the way they work. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for our pre-existing friendship and like proximity to one another, I'm not sure that this record would have been able to been made, because I just don't think it would have been like safe to do so.
Right. Yeah. When we started talking, you mentioned that this is like the only time that you've really sat in one place for a year. How is being in North Carolina and working with your friends in North Carolina for the past year affected the way that you look at music, the way you look at songwriting?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question, because I've been thinking about this so much. Because obviously music is such a huge part of who I am as a person. And I've dedicated my life to the process of creating it and sharing it. And a lot of what that looks like has meant a lot of travel and a lot of things that honestly, there's still some uncertainty around how much of that may or may not actually return and to what extent. And so I've had to sort of really take stock of, what do I need? Like, what is a need? And like in those early days of the pandemic, when everything really felt so uncertain, it became clear that I like going on tour and playing in front of hundreds or sometimes thousands of people. It's not a need.
Right.
And I think the process of sharing music is the need, and all that you really need to have that is a community. And the size of the community, I think, doesn't really matter as much to the impact of what it feels like. Meaning that I've always been the kind of person where like the most meaningful parts of a record release are the people I know and love and care about and respect reaching out to me to tell me that something I made really touched them. Like that to me is when I actually like feel how how important that cycle is of like creating and offering up. A lot of the other stuff, the flashier like stuff and the like sort of more relatively anonymous like press stuff, even though it's like intellectually speaking, I could be like, oh, it's really cool that so-and-so likes this record or this publication or that. Like I don't actually feel anything around that very much. And so I think the thing that's very comforting to me is that I can imagine a future for myself in which I feel a meaningful relationship with the creative process of creating and sharing things with others at any scale. That the numbers aren't really as important as the act itself, and that it can feel meaningful whether I'm sharing that music with thousands of people or just a handful of close friends who I love. So that to me, and it might sound like a silly thing for someone to say in an interview with a large radio station. Like, yeah, easy for you to say, but like, but I really felt it this year. Like a lot of that external validation that you get from the outside world wasn't present. And I wasn't miserable. Like I still got to do the thing in a way. And it's not that I don't miss those things, but like, I don't need them, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. And it sounds like kind of as your physical world got smaller and you're kind of in this little bubble that you were able to like look into your more intimate social circle for validation and for approval. And that's really cool that those things kind of went hand in hand.
Yeah. And we need other people, we need to be in community with others. We need to be interdependent as a species. And I really believe that. I think sometimes the quantity, sizing up the scale, can start to really like, it can be diminishing returns at a certain point. It gets real complicated really fast. And it's nice to sort of like, I think it's important to be intentional with your choices in life in general, but also like in career especially. And so like, it's really nice to know that about myself and to know like what actually matters. What do I need? What about this process actually is important to me? And how do I like focus on making decisions around that rather than just sort of like making the most money and getting the most people to look at me?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one of the people that you've connected with over the past year is Meg Duffy of Hand Habits. You recorded the songs that we are hearing today with. Do you want to talk about recording those songs, the live versions of those songs with Meg?
Yeah, so Meg, they played on my record as well. They came out to North Carolina. They're one of our tight-knit group. And I just love them so much. I think so highly of them as a human being, as a songwriter, as a player. And I've been so fortunate to cross paths with them these past few years and play in a bunch of different ensembles with them. And so it's funny that I have to say this now after saying how cool it is that I stayed in one place for all this time, but I did go to Joshua Tree this winter, to escape the dismal, rainy North Carolina cold and give myself, as someone who lives alone, some semblance of a shot at getting through the winter without being truly, truly miserable. And so I drove out there. In my little minivan. And I, which honestly, I am so impressed at my sweet Honda Odyssey managed to make it across the country. I promised her, she's got 200,000 miles on her, and I promised her I wouldn't make her do that again, but I did. So yeah, and Meg's in LA, and so I was like,
Mhm.
if you want to come and drive out to a Joshua Tree and hang out for an afternoon and say hi to me from a distance, you'll
Mhm.
notice in the video we're kind of set up at a healthy
Mhm.
healthy distance from one another.
Mhm.
But it was just nice to see them and see a familiar face and to make music. We didn't rehearse. Like, these are sort of like, these videos are all kind of like first takes, but it was more just
Mhm.
about the experience of like remembering that playing music with another person is actually like a very special and important thing to get to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you feel like being in Joshua Tree changed the way that you were playing or the way that you were looking at these songs at all?
I mean, inevitably, I think
Mhm.
at that point, some time had passed since from the writing of the songs. And
Mhm.
um, I think my thinking on a lot of the issue at hand had sort of evolved many times over.
Mhm.
And I think one of the reasons that songs are such an interesting framework for self-exploration is that, like, they are both highly specific, and if you're doing it right, like highly universal, so
Mhm.
that they can kind of expand to fit. Um, and I was actually doing an interview with, or I did a podcast with my friend Meryl Garbus, who
Mhm.
is from the band Tune Yards, and she mentioned actually the song "Walking," which is one of the songs that Meg and I played.
Mhm.
That she, when she heard it, there's like a collective we mentioned it, like, are we 20 miles from nothing, are we anywhere at all? And she sort of read that song as to be about the collective, like to be about
Mhm.
us as a society, as a whole, and like, what are we moving towards, what are we progressing towards. um, and that song was obviously written about a very specific person, a very specific
Mhm.
relationship, and sort of using the walk as a metaphor for like moving through a
Mhm.
relationship from its beginning to its eventual end. But it was really cool to get to a place where, since my thinking on and my experience had evolved, I was able to hear my own music in a way to sort of like, to be able to really feel the reinterpretation of it, like the expanding of it, to not just be about myself, and to get outside
Mhm.
myself enough to actually be able to sort of like feel that and feel something a little bit more universal inside of it. And I think the perspective of being in a new place, being with, and like singing an old song in a new place, like, it sort of helps to kind of feed into that part of the process.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to hear that song "Walking" right now. Thank you again, Jen, for sitting down with me today. It's been a pleasure.
It's so nice to talk to you. And yeah, thanks so much for playing my music and listening to my songs. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Jen, and as well to our producers, Derrick Stevens and Jesse Wiza, as well as today's engineer, Eric Romani. And thank you to the members of Minnesota Public Radio for making it all possible.
Chasing after the morning, hearing some kind of call. Are we 20 miles from nothing here? Are we anywhere at all? Nothing on the horizon, ticking time on the clock. We are dead in the water. We are walking just to walk. We are dead in the water. We are walking just to walk. Peculiar combination of hands and eyes and hair, and the glow of recognition and an accidental stare. I can't make sense of the purpose, if only to go without, not to run my hand around it, run my fingers in its mouth. Can I run my hands around it? telling a story, believable by day, but I find it unconvincing when I feel this far away. I know there are other lives, things I go without, but if I ever let it cross my mind, all I see are open mouths. If I ever let it cross my mind, all I see are open mouths. I think I can rest easy, knowing what could be. If the present is decided, then my life belongs to me. Work, it keeps me busy, longing is my friend. Alone again, my time, it is my own again. Alone again, my time.